cool that you decided to volunteer. So let's go ahead and introduce you.
Yes.
Who are you? What you do? Go for it.
Yes. Okay, so my name is Meghan Erickson. I am an Atlanta native and I work at a hospitalist company as a staffing specialist. And I am a mama to a beautiful little 10-month-old boy named Luca.
Very nice, very nice. So, other than working full time and being a mom, what do you like to do besides that?
So we just bought our first home this year, which was really, really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I've really become interested in doing DIY projects. So thrifting has always been a passion of mine since high school or so. I love turning people's trash into treasures. So
That's awesome.
I would have to say home decor. That's my new thing right now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you need to come over and decorate my house.
Your house is beautiful. What are you talking about?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about why we're here today. So introduce your struggle, how it started, and what happened during that struggle, and then how were you able to overcome all that?
Okay, yes, absolutely. So I'll kind of give a little bit of background history. So for those of you who don't know, but I have been somebody that has always wanted kids my entire life. Back in high school, I never really cared about going to parties, never really cared about going out. I always dreamt about what my family would be like, what my kids would be like. Always been like that. So obviously, when I got pregnant, I was very excited and whatnot. And depression is something that runs in my family, but it's something I had never personally dealt with myself, especially not postpartum depression, which is what my struggle unfortunately has been. But I will say when I was pregnant, I felt okay. I mean, obviously I had the typical pregnancy symptoms. It was kind of a rough pregnancy. I was sick pretty much all the time. Yeah, never felt good. Never felt good. I remember women always saying, "Oh my gosh, I love being pregnant. I'm just glowing." And I always said I felt like the woman in I felt like Elizabeth Banks in that movie What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Yes.
That's exactly what I felt like. I felt like the sweating all the time, tired. Yeah. So anyway, so when I ended up having Luca, he ended up coming early, which was unexpected, and
quick question. So when did Luca come? When was that?
Came. So his due date was November 24th, and we went for our 38-week checkup on November 14th of 2018. And everything was fine. Like his heart rate was fine and whatnot, and I mentioned, right as we were leaving, I had mentioned to my OBGYN that I hadn't been feeling him move as much.
Okay.
So I just didn't know if I was being crazy. I had a really stressful weekend at work the weekend prior, and so I just thought maybe it was all in my imagination. It was all in my head, whatnot. So anyways, he did some tests, and then we did an ultrasound, and I remember him saying to Travis and I, he was like, "Well, I hope your bags are packed." And I kind of looked at him and I was like, "Oh, not really. Why?" And he's like, "Because you're going to the hospital right now." So that was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, an unexpected delivery can also lead to postpartum depression, which I did not know. I had no idea.
Awesome.
I ended up having an emergency C-section, which was not expected, which again can lead to postpartum depression. So there were all these factors that I think played a role in it, looking back. That I just was not aware of at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a first-time mom. I have the experiences of some of my friends. I have the experience of my mom, the women that I'm close to in my life. But, obviously I had to experience it for myself and kind of figure out my own path and whatnot. So when he was born, he ended up being born the next morning at 7:08 a.m. And he was super healthy, thankfully. And he ended up having to be in the NICU for a little while, which another symptom or factor, I guess, that can lead to postpartum depression, which I was not aware of.
Everything just linked to
right.
exactly that one topic we're here to talk about.
Exactly. So
it's really cool that you're able to look back and say, okay, I understand exactly where everything came from.
Right. Where
and
it
now you
stemmed
can
from.
help others find that way, like figure it out before it begins.
Yes, and that honestly, that is my goal. I really hope that I can help somebody if they're struggling through this or if they're going through something similar, that they don't feel alone. And I'll get more into that because that was my hardest struggle, was feeling totally alone and feeling like I was a crazy person, right? And I wasn't crazy, and I shouldn't have been ashamed. I shouldn't have felt bad about what I was going through, but I'll get to that in a second. So basically when he was born, they took him, I had an emergency C-section, obviously, so I was kind of out of it, wasn't feeling that hot. And then come to find out that I hadn't had an epidural, so I was on no pain medication for the first 2 days, which I just thought that was normal. I thought that kind of pain was just, that's what birth is. That's what it was, and it wasn't. Or it shouldn't have been at least that painful. But, so he ended up getting taken to the NICU pretty much right away. So I think right then and there, that was probably already a sign for me because I didn't feel that connection or that bond with him. And I remember thinking, they romanticize this whole notion of falling in love with your child the second you see them, that it's automatically going to be this love at first sight feeling, and that you're going to be over the moon and over the world, and this is just the best thing to ever happen to you. And sometimes that does not happen.
You're exactly right.
It doesn't. And we need to stop portraying that as normal, because it's not for everyone. There is no normal, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has different experiences. Everyone feels things differently. And we need to talk about that. We need to talk about what women go through when they don't have that fluttery butterfly feeling, because I did not. I looked at him and I truly felt like he was a baby, yes, and he was a very cute baby, but I didn't feel like at the time that he was my baby. I mean, to be honest, I kind of felt like a babysitter. I felt like this was somebody else's child and I was just the babysitter. I did not have that connection. I did not have that bond. And it's so important that women understand that that's okay if you don't have that bond, if you don't have that emotional attachment right off the get-go, because that is something that can develop with time. Obviously, babies are very needy, especially newborns. So they don't really give you a lot back in those first few months, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of take, but they don't, they're not smiling yet. They're not cooing and looking at you and making babbling noises.
And laughing.
Exactly. They're just, all you deal with is being sleep deprived, and you're dirty with milk all over you all the time.
Yeah.
And it just it's a lot. It is a lot. And, I think also I tried breastfeeding, because in the hospitals, I do think that the lactation consultants sometimes are a little pushy with breastfeeding. And breastfeeding ended up not working out for us. We ended up formula feeding, which was my saving grace, honestly. I know it's very controversial, people can believe what they want to believe, but at the end of the day, as long as your baby is fed and your baby is healthy, that is all that matters. Whether or not you breastfeed, whether or not you formula feed, whether or not you bottle feed, whether or not you pump exclusively, it doesn't matter. Your baby is still getting the nutrients, and what matters the most is that your baby has a happy and healthy mother and father. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
That is the most important, because if they don't have a healthy mom or a healthy dad in the right mindset, then they're going to struggle. They will struggle. So that was something that I had to really accept and really learn over time as well.
Yeah.
So basically, I started having those feelings pretty much right off the get-go. By the time we got home, we were in the hospital for about 6 days or so. And by the time we got home, I remember he cried the entire night. We didn't get home until probably 9 p.m. on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And he cried all night long. And I just was so exhausted. I mean, obviously, I had just had a C-section, so I had just had a major surgery. I'm still healing and whatnot, and you don't hear about that either. Like your
Yeah.
body is still healing. You're still going through so many things emotionally and physically, and your hormones are all over the place and whatnot. And I just had no idea. So I pretty much cried the first 2 weeks. I will say I cried every single second. I was absolutely miserable. I remember having Luca home and thinking all these awful and negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember thinking, I'm such a bad mom. Like, how could I think this way about my child? And I think people, postpartum depression is very still stigmatized, right? And it's very isolating.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people automatically, when they hear postpartum depression, they automatically go to those negative thoughts like, oh, the mother hates her child or has ill feelings or ill wishes towards their baby, or they want to hurt or injure their baby. And that is not the case. Some women do. Now let's be honest, some women do have those feelings.
Yeah,
some women do feel that way, and if somebody is going through that, then there is help, and you can get the help that you need.
Yeah.
I personally did not have those feelings, like where I wanted to hurt my child, but I pretty much felt everything else.
Yeah.
So I remember telling my mom that I had made the biggest mistake ever, that I wasn't fit to be a mom. And you've got to think, for somebody like me who has wanted to be a mom her entire life, it was absolutely devastating.
Right.
It was
everything.
completely devastating, because you dream of this moment and this life for so long, and then for it to finally happen, your dreams are coming true, and then to feel absolutely miserable, it's heartbreaking. It is. It truly, truly is. And I think luckily I had a very good support system, you know? Like, we had our family close. Both of our parents live within 20 minutes of us. We had amazing friends and family that always supported us and helped us, but I know a lot of women don't have that, and a lot of men, because let's also bring up that men can also go through postpartum depression.
I did not know that.
Yes, so men can also deal with it, and there have actually been studies as well that have shown that adoptive parents can also go through postpartum depression. So it shows that it's not only biological, but that it's also environmental, which is crazy, you know? Like, this is a real thing that's happening, and we need to talk about it. Like, we don't need to be ashamed, we don't need to be hiding, because that does not make you a bad parent. Because you've had these feelings, it does not make you a bad parent. You should not be ashamed. When you're able to admit these feelings, to me, that shows strength and courage, and it shows that you are willing and want to get the help that you not only need, but that you deserve. You are deserving of this help. You know, like that's, I think for me, that's what I had to realize, like, that I deserved it. And as a mother, as a person, that I did deserve. Explain some of the things that I was feeling myself personally, because I know when I was dealing through all the postpartum depression symptoms and all the feelings that went along with it, all I did was look up on the internet. I tried to look up different stories, YouTube videos. I probably read every single article that you possibly could read about postpartum depression. Just to try to relate, because I think when you're going through all of that, all you want to do is you want to feel relatable. Like, you want to feel that somebody else is, that sounds bad, that somebody else is going through the exact same thing, but you do. Like, we as humans, we all want to connect, right? That's what we need.
It's all part of, like, not feeling alone, like, knowing that there are some people out there that are going through similar process as you.
Correct.
And be able to, like, get some of your questions answered, get some ideas and advice on how to move forward from that.
Right, exactly. And some of the things that I personally felt, I felt like I had mentioned before, I felt like I had made a mistake. I felt like I wasn't meant to be a mom. Like, maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe my dreams for however many years were unrealistic, you know, that I wasn't cut out to be a mom. I wasn't gonna be a good parent. I remember telling my mom that we needed to look up safe havens, because we needed to drop him off at a safe haven.
Oh my God.
I remember telling my mom about how I was going to convince Travis to let us put him up for adoption. I mean, these were all things, I'm telling you, those first 3 weeks that I was telling people that were literally going through my mind. And at the time, now I look back on it and I'm like, I can't believe I ever thought that way. But that's how it works. That is how depression works.
Yeah.
That is how it works. And in the moment, it felt so real. In the moment, it felt like that was my only option and my only hope was that he's obviously, I never personally would ever hurt my child, but I was like, we have to take him to a safe haven, or we're gonna have to put him up for adoption. Like, we can't do this. We can't do this. I just remember thinking, like, we can't do this. We can't do this. And but I still didn't really open up that much about it. I mean, I talked to my mom about it, but I tried to hold it in from everybody else because I even tried to hold it in from Travis because I thought that if he knew how I truly felt, he would think I was crazy, and he'd be like, what am I doing with this woman, you know? And that's so sad. Looking back on that, that's so incredibly sad. And that a lot of women are probably don't want to tell their husbands, or they don't want to tell their wives or their significant others that they're going through something like this because they're ashamed of what the world is gonna
think of them.
Exactly. And that is so heartbreaking. That is so heartbreaking because when you're going through that already, and obviously having a baby is such a transition. You know, it's completely different. It's no longer about you and your significant other, or just it is about
the child,
this baby, this life that has
you created.
Right. Exactly. And I think you know, so when I started doing my research and I was looking up all these stories and whatnot, it brought me so much comfort to know that other people were going through the same thing. And I remember reading several stories and how they said, it will get better, it will get better. And I remember thinking, there's no way, it's not gonna get better. There's not gonna get better. And there were several times where I remember thinking, you know, well, Travis and Luca would just be better off without me. Like, I don't even wanna be here anymore at this point. And I remember thinking those thoughts quite frequently. And although I never really told anybody, right? Because again, we as humans, we tend to internalize, and this is just something that should not and cannot be internalized. Like, I cannot stress that enough. If you feel like you are having these off emotions, or you feel like something's just off with you, please, please, please
do not be afraid to speak up.
Exactly. Like, anyone can reach out to me. Like, I am here all the time. I will message you. I will come over to your house. I will help you. If you just need 2 hours to take a nap, I will watch your child. Like, seriously, that's how passionate I am about this, because I feel so strongly, because I had a great support system, but I know that a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have their family living right here, or maybe they don't have close friends that they can feel comfortable enough to open up, you know? So, it's just something that it needs to be discussed. It needs to be open. It needs to be opened up about. And, you know, hopefully we're going in that direction. I really hope so, and hopefully, you know, we are paving the way for new mothers as well that may have no idea. And I just know personally, with any friends that I've had that have become pregnant since I've had Luca, I always tell them, I'm like, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything like that, but if you have any feelings where you just feel like something's off, because what a lot of people don't know is that you can also develop PPD or in pregnancy as well. So you can also start having symptoms while you're pregnant, and it makes sense because all your hormones are all over the place and this and that. And I will say, one of my OBGYN did say that post-pregnancy, you're supposed to continue taking your prenatals
and that's
for 8 weeks. I think she said 8 weeks after, and apparently that can also play a factor in PPD if you don't, because I stopped taking my prenatals. Right after Luca was born, I did not take one prenatal.
Wow.
And it makes complete sense, actually, because, I mean, that's regulating your hormones, right? So when you go through that much of a change, physically and mentally, you know, and then throw on being sleep deprived, I mean, that completely messes with you. So my next step, so what I did there was, after the 3rd week, I just knew I couldn't. I was crying all day long. We were having dinner with our parents, and during the middle of dinner, for no apparent reason, I just started bawling, and I ran to the bathroom, and I just cried and cried and cried, and then from there on, I just cried every day, all day long. And I remember Luca was sleeping in the other room one night, and he was in his little swing, and I remember, because I never knew when he was going to cry or not. I remember hearing him breathe, and my anxiety, just hearing him breathe, like that's how bad it was. To the point where hearing him breathe caused me stress and anxiety, and I couldn't sleep. I was just wide awake.
Wow.
And that sounds crazy. Like when I say it, I'm like, what? You know, but it was so real. It was so real in the moment. And I know that I'm not the only one that has gone through something like that. I know that. So, you know, I want people to feel reassured that if they are going through something similar, or you know, maybe even not exactly what I'm going through, but just something, you know, just depression in general, not even postpartum depression. Just, I understand where you are coming from. You are not, okay, I'm gonna have to edit that out.
No, okay. Top five. Five, okay, done.
Okay, hold on.
You have the hand up. Start.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, hold on, let me see. You are not. Okay. There is nothing wrong with you. Do not be ashamed. Do not feel guilty. You know, we are here for you. This is your support. This is your support group. And so what I did was I immediately went to my OBGYN, and my mom and my stepdad actually went with me. And I was so embarrassed. I remember I was so embarrassed, and I didn't want to say those words. I didn't want to say postpartum depression, because I felt like instantly they would look at me and just be like eye daggers, you know, like there's something wrong with you. And I remember my OBGYN looked at me, and she's so sweet. And she looked at me and she goes, "Girl, it's totally good." I went through the exact same thing. And she had just had a baby, her first baby, maybe a year prior. And she goes, "Megan, I literally went through the exact same thing. I understand."
Yeah.
And I just her saying, because she was my doctor, she was my OBGYN. So hearing her say that, I can't even.
Comfort.
Yes, that I'm not the only one, that we're not alone in this world dealing with this, you know? And so I ended up getting on Zoloft, an antidepressant, and I ended up getting referred to a therapist. So I went to therapy for a little while, but once I took the Zoloft, it takes about 2 weeks or so to kick in. But after that 2-week mark, I felt like a completely different person. It was a complete 180, it really was. And I just felt joy again. I felt lively. I felt happy for the first time in a while. I felt like I could actually enjoy my son. I felt like I could bond with him, that I could connect with him. And it still took me a little bit longer after that to form that bond and to form that connection with him. But some women don't form that bond or connection for years. Yeah. Literally years, because they're either told, "Oh, you just have baby blues," or, you know, "This is just parenthood. Yeah. Deal with it. Get over it." And, you know, I'm sure there are so many people out there that are dealing with it internally, and that could have the help and could get the help, but just don't know. Yeah. And don't have the resources. So.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I'm so proud of you for taking the time to open up and share your stories with others. It's not easy. It's really not easy. And I really hope that you're able to reach out to others, and others will reach out to you with questions, concerns, whatever it is. And I just love the fact that you are here and available to help whoever needs your help. Absolutely. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, to share stories back and forth, to get advice, or just to vent, anything, honestly, I am here. I am available on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Meghan, that's MEGHAN _Erickson. Okay. And that's ERICSON. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. I am so happy that you were able to open up your heart. So
yes, thank you so much for having me.
What this will lead to.
Yes, thank you.